We are now going to move on with a fascinating topic. I'm actually going to be staying on stage to moderate it, and I'm thrilled to be joined by some very brilliant speakers. The session is called From Gateway to Gatekeeper, and this really looks at the allocation of slots and how it's become increasingly competitive, and aggregators have also potentially offered the perfect solution. But have they also caused an imbalance in the market? We are about to find out. So please join me in welcoming to the stage my amazing guests. We got 5 chairs here. We got 5 stars lined up in the wings to come and join me. So I want you to give them all a big round of applause when they come on stage. First up, we're going to welcome my great friend. He is the founder and CEO of Alea. Please welcome Alexandre Tomic. Thank you. Welcome, Alexandre. Hey. Great to see you, buddy. Thank you so much. Once again, we're here. That's what I like to see. Okay, joining Alexandre, we've got the Director of Casino Product over at Relax Gaming Group. Please welcome Shelley Hanna. Thank you. Yes. Team Shelley in the house. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. Make yourself comfortable there. That's what we like to see. Good crowd involvement. Next up, we've got the former Chief Business Development Officer from Blue Guru Games. Please give it up for Liam Mulvaney. Thank you. Welcome, Liam, or should I say Jason? Good to see you, my friend. Jason from now on, that's it. We're in Malta. Right, next up, we've got the Head of Account Management at the Mighty Swint. Please give it up for Tanya Axisa. Welcome, Tanya. Wonderful. Welcome, Tanya. Great to see you. And rounding up our all-star panelists, we've got the co-founder and CEO at Holiday Games. Please welcome Robert Lenshofer. Thank you. Robert, welcome. Great to see you. Thanks so much for joining us. So, as we would say in the music business, this is all killer, no filler. And seeing as it's my session here, I notice we've got 10,000 minutes on the clock, so we're going to go with no. Okay, we've got 23 minutes left. Right, in time-honored fashion, let's come to your good self first, Alexandre, and just tell the good people here who you are and what you do if they don't know you. Thank you.
Well, hi, guys. It's nice being here today. My name is Alexandre Tomic. I'm the founder and CEO of Alea. Alea started as a B2C operator in 2012, and now we are an aggregator, game aggregator, focusing on B2B markets.
Fantastic. And over to your good self, Shelley.
Hi, everyone. I'm Shelley Hanna, Director of Casino Products at Relax Gaming. I've been there for coming on 5 years since the beginning of the aggregation setup, and in the industry for 10 or so years.
Fantastic. Thank you, Shelley. Over to you, good self, Liam.
I'm Liam. So I founded Blue Guru and another game studio, and I've been working with B2B game studios over the last 11 years. That's pretty much it.
Fantastic. And from Liam, we pass the ball to Tanya.
Hi, thank you for having me. Tanya Axisa, Head of Account Management at Swint. I've been with Swint for almost 2 years now. In the industry, pretty over 10 years now. So.
Excellent. Okay, we have some very qualified people on the stage here, myself obviously excluded from that statement. And rounding off our introductions, Robert.
Hey, I'm Robert Lenshofer. I'm in the industry for 22 years, quite a long time now. And I'm the co-founder and CEO of Holiday Games. It's a new startup in the video slots area. We do games plus also RGS business.
Excellent. Okay, we're going to kick things off right away. I'm going to stay with your good self, Robert. Now, talk to us a bit about the balance between suppliers and aggregators and the balance between studios and aggregators. How can we make things better?
Yeah, so the landscape is changing, it's evolving. When you look at how many studios are out there, I saw a report the other day that it's around 600, 700 studios. When I started in 2001 or so, I think we had like 100 games, not 700 studios. And it seems also that the tax threshold is changing. Things get easier. There's a lot of tools and utilities out there which make it easier to operate, create a studio business and also an aggregation business. And there's friction these days, of course. When everything grows, there's too many studios perhaps. There's a lot of aggregators, a lot of studios becoming aggregators. And there's a lot of room of improvement where we are today. For instance, like a friend of mine who is head of aggregation, nobody here on the panel, but somewhere else, asked me, well, you know, I'm running an aggregator, what should I do? And I said, well, you know what? what if you raise prices and increase service level? Because what I've seen with the aggregators I know, it's becoming harder and harder to see the studios as a customer and service them well. It starts with simple things to pay the invoices on time, starts with simple things that there's a vendor manager in place. So I think there's friction at the moment because there's too much of everything.
Too much of everything. Good suggestion there. Be brilliant at the basics. It's always good advice. Coming over to yourself, Shelley, talk to us a bit about what the iGaming world would be like without aggregators, if you can imagine such a thing.
Yeah, so I think 10 years ago we had a few suppliers, like Robert was saying there. Aggregators, I think, came into play when there was more demand for suppliers, but you know, where would we be now without the aggregators? Operators would be backed up with integrations. There may be less operators able to kick off their businesses, I think, because a lot of new operators rely upon the aggregator setup. And I think there would be a high level of inconsistency across the tech and across the offering and what the operator receives at the end. So it would be a very different world, and maybe a good world in some viewpoints. Less games, less, you know, but...
Okay, controversial statements on the stage here, right? You're in the right place.
In some viewpoints.
Okay, diplomatically controversial statements on the stage. Well played, okay. Nice deflection there. So coming back to yourself, Tanya, now talk to us a bit about, you know, what's best practice over at Swint in terms of like the B2B angle on this, working with aggregators. You know, how do you see it from your point of view?
From our perspective, we like to work with aggregators a lot because it gives us easy access to new markets. For example, when we work with our partners like Relax, promo tools, there's new studios that are also available through the aggregator. One of the cons might be about not being able to build that relationship with the customer as much as you want, whereas in the past we used to speak directly to the customer. I mean, not all aggregators work that way, but you have to find the middle ground and go through the aggregator, which makes it a little bit difficult for us. I mean, coming from an account management perspective, building the customer relationships and being able to give them the service that we want to, as in showcasing our games, making the games visible, setting up promotions. So there's the benefits and the cons as well to it. I mean, as everything else, obviously.
Indeed, pros and cons there, and this is what we're here to discuss. But let's just talk about like the past 10 to 12 years. Does anyone want to jump in with any observations on how the landscape has changed in the past decade or so?
I think on the slot side, if I can, so on the slot side, the addition of aggregators, of course, I think Shelley kind of, the controversial part of it, it might be a better thing is, you know, we got to a stage where there's a lot of aggregators. The barriers of entry have reduced massively for game suppliers. So that is one of the biggest changes that we've seen, I think, across. So we get easier access to regulated markets, easier access to those, you know, direct integrations, which nowadays are becoming possible. But then the question is, it's a bit of a catch-22, right? So without those aggregators, possibly operators would have been continued forced to doing the direct integrations. So again, it's very hard to say how it would be now, but we've seen, Robert as well touched out on that, 700 suppliers, about 28,000 games in the market nowadays, and if you consider last year alone, 7,000 of those were released last year, right, out of those 28,000. So it's been a massive shift, made it much harder for game suppliers, of course, to get their voice out. But I think it also gives us an opportunity, something which we've missed, I think we've been missing in the past. And again, Tanya touched a bit on this. On the account management side, the commercial teams need to get stronger to be able to go out there and present themselves to become even better for the operators and bridge that shift between aggregators and game suppliers, I think.
Right, well said indeed. And Alexandre, coming over to your good self now, you actually used to be an operator. So like back in the day, not that long ago, but a while ago, what was your feeling about aggregators when you were an operator? What would you have said about them in a conversation in a pub, for instance?
And I still run operations apart from Alea, so it's still a valid conversation. Back in time, we would never use an aggregator. We didn't like aggregators. Okay. They were adding latency. We considered that their team technically were not as good as we were in order to integrate games. they were irrelevant. Why would you use an aggregator if you had, let's say, 5 to 10 software providers? Basically, I'm sorry, I was saying aggregators as a parasite, as an unnecessary.
Come off the fence there, Alexandre.
And
How do you really feel?
I mean, you know, like these companies, they exist just to take the money out of you. It was a nonsense. And then what happened is that more and more software providers coming out, integration getting more and more complex. The integration APIs are getting more complex than they were before. I don't want to enter too much technical, but APIs call, you had the bet in the win in the same call before. Now we have 2 different calls, and you need reconciliation, retries, and rollbacks. And we have more and more games. We have, as everybody said here, we have more and more studios coming out. So you could say, okay, I don't need these studios. I won't try them, and I don't give a shit, and I will use pragmatic play and evolution, and with that I have 70% of my business. And you will be right.
Yeah.
And on the other side, so I don't want to integrate all of these guys. And there are even aggregators that are taking that stance. They say, we stop integration. We do a freeze on integration because all these studios are shit. The other thing, you say, yes, it's true, partially. There's 90% of them, they won't make it next year. Yeah. But they are hidden gems. Mm-hmm. And you may miss them. And you may miss the No Limit City, the push gaming. You may miss all this big-time gaming. When I saw it first time, to be honest, I wasn't very impressed. You will miss all of these gems. Should you integrate 100 providers to get 3 or 4 that are going to be good at the end? No, you can't. At a cost level, it's just not possible as an operator. You can't do that. And actually today, you must use an aggregator, and you must use an aggregator almost as a testing platform for these new software providers. So you onboard them one by one. Aggregators should allow communication between software providers and operators, because we can't know neither all the games. More act as a technical platform, as a game broker, also as a game specialist, but leave the communication open between software providers and operators, and allow the operator to test all these games and take them and throw them away. Take them, throw them away. But without having to do all the due diligence, commercials, integration. It's just not sustainable. And even your development team is going to hate you. I mean, the development team is going to say, I know we had a problem in China. We don't want to work on these APIs anymore. I want to do products.
Yeah.
You know, I don't want to do the
Yes, totally. So you're kind of taking away a world of pain for your developers, a world of boredom in some cases. You know, oh my God, do we have to really deal with this? The answer is no, because you're kind of working with aggregators, you're working with new solutions. But is there an element of this that's helping you reach new markets, that's helping you scale? I mean, who wants to jump in and talk about this? You're very welcome.
Just quickly,
yeah.
Of course, because there is time to market.
Yeah.
Signing a contract, from the moment we start as an aggregator, but it's the same as an operator, to talk to a software provider and we integrate them, it's between 6 to 12 months. Mm. Imagine you want to integrate 10 software providers. Setup fee, minimum fee, it's just not possible. You won't do it. Mm. You can't do it. So you're going to sign your pragmatic, you're going to sign your evolution, and then seriously, all the rest, you take it through an aggregator. And slowly what you do, you see, and I can say it very openly as an aggregator, you take your best performing software through the aggregator and sign directly with them. And you use your aggregation platform as a testing platform. You know?
That's very smart. Absolutely. I like it. You're kind of looking at the new technical solutions, the new opportunities, and using them for what's most optimal for your business. Now, speaking of which, Shelley, yourselves, you have this great, very popular program at the moment called Silver Bullets. They say there's no such thing as a silver bullet. There is. It's your program. Talk to us a bit about it.
Absolutely. So I'm a great believer in aggregation needing to fit different needs of suppliers. And the Silver Bullet program's there to allow innovation for new young studios who just don't have the ability to have licenses and the tech and everything else. And you know, I'm a very lucky person. Over the last 10 years, I've watched small studios go big through that. And I think, you know, you asked the question before of what would it be like without aggregators? Well, this is an aggregation method. And I think we would be left with the 3 or 4 that were, you know, so active back then. And I love that it is a bit of a stepping stone towards, or a diving board towards success.
Yeah, absolutely. I like it. A diving board's a better metaphor than stepping stone.
I totally agree.
Played.
I got that one wrong.
Oh, good. Oh, good. Dive in, folks. Dive in. Coming over to yourself, Tanya. How do you see it from your point of view about the opportunity for smaller studios in this kind of new ecosystem?
It's definitely got a lot of opportunity from my perspective. For example, Swint, we're taking a little bit of a similar approach as well when it comes to aggregators, as in we're onboarding new studios. At the moment, we've got 5 studios, so we're hoping by the end of the year, we're going to have an additional 3. Cool. So all the games will be available for our customers. Hopefully, there might be the next big game coming along from one of these small studios. Is just giving them the opportunity to showcase their games, to get visibility, and to, especially being as there's so many suppliers out there, I mean, maybe they don't have the RGS technology themselves. They're able to build on our own technology and get their content branched out, which I think is a really nice opportunity for them.
Yeah. Well said. Now, I'm going to introduce a 4-word phrase that's very popular at conferences. Show me the money. Who wants to talk about what a modern kind of financial settlement might look like in this ecosystem? What kind of deals are going on that folks should know about?
I can.
Okay, well volunteered, Robert, well volunteered.
You mean in terms of how aggregation works financially?
Yeah, absolutely. What should folks be aware of in terms of like the money side of things?
Yeah, I mean it's a very simple business model. It's based on typically on a percentage of the revenue share. Yes. There's 2 models out there. One is a percentage of what you earn, basically, and the other one is a reseller model. So you have a fixed percentage. You sell the games to the aggregator, and then the aggregator is finding opportunities to sell the games at a higher price. So that's quite, I think, can be quite interesting. Of course, you, as a studio, never quite know at what price your games are being sold to customers. And I think there's a nuance, like also with Relax and Silver Bullet and RGS to RGS, there's a nuance how close you are, basically, to the operator. If you are a Silver Bullet partner of Relax, you're kind of closer to the partner. And although the pricing might differ, that could be an advantage. So it's not just about the pricing itself, but also really, I mean, to the point I alluded before, there's really 2 components. One is tech, and the other one is service. And at the moment, the trend currently is tech is getting easier, but the service level is also going down. So I think, so if you look at pricing of an aggregator, I think these days, both sides should look at service. How well is the studio equipped to be responsive on the communication channels, Skype or wherever? On the other side, well, am I being serviced by that aggregator, or am I just part of their list on a sub-page on their homepage?
That's a very that's a question to be asked with a lot of candor, I would say. That's a very good point. Now, of course, when we're kind of opening up this interconnected ecosystem, we got APIs, we got integrations, etc. But all of these are introducing more vectors of attack in terms of cybercrime, and obviously it's a very lucrative and attractive area for cyber criminals. What say you about this world of managing the security side of things? What should our delegates here be aware of when approaching this world from the point of view of security?
I may take that one. We've seen a lot of hacks happening lately, and I mean, again, I speak a lot about that, and the more I speak about it, I had a conversation like 2 days ago. I spoke about that in Casino Beats, and the guys comes to me and say, "Oh, you spoke about us. Thank you for not telling our name." I said, "No, it wasn't you actually. Oh, you here, but we too. Oh, okay.
Oops.
All right.
What hack? We weren't hacked. I was just messing with you. Yes.
All. All, especially the new ones, the new software providers. Why the new software providers? Because they're more sensible to these attacks, because their API are not so robust that a software provider has been here for 10 years, okay? So if you go through an aggregator and the aggregator forces a software provider to do the reverse integration, saying, okay, your job is to do good games and our job is to do good API, then you're more protected. I don't say you're completely protected, but I say you're much more protected. Yeah. Okay? And we had credit card fraud before, we had bonus abuse fraud, and now what we're seeing coming more and more is a game API fraud. Okay, so hackers are able to generate illegitimate wins, okay, or winnings without bets for example, and they test each new release or a game, each integration into a different, for the same software provider into different operators, because sometimes integration is not exactly the same. And when they find a flaw, then they move from operator to operator, and they exploit as much as they can. And it's becoming an issue, and I think it's an issue we're going to see more and more.
Yeah, indeed, and this opens up a whole can of worms. On the can of worms is the word liability. So, Tanya, talk to us a bit about the liability in this kind of situations. You know, is this well defined? Is it nebulous?
It's a little bit tricky. I mean,
Yeah.
as Alex mentioned, we do see these happening more and more. I mean, I think at some point every software provider, I mean, is going to have a hack happen. I mean, at some point or another. So it all boils down to, I mean, finding that middle ground that is going to make it work for both the aggregator, the operator in question, I mean, that has been attacked. So, I mean, obviously you want to keep the relationships going, you want to keep everyone happy. I mean, there's a lot of money that is being lost along the way. So it does complicate things. I mean, and you need to add that level of security. So, I mean, hopefully, you know, you'll reach that middle ground to avoid them as much as possible at some point.
Yeah, indeed. It's another thing to be aware of when embarking on this. And coming over to yourself, Shelley, talk to us a bit about the, you know, challenges and opportunities around the customer experience, the user experience, because we all expect everything to be completely flawless and, you know, to flow from one thing to the other. What should folks be aware of?
Well, I think when it comes to being an aggregator or working with an aggregator, you want consistency. When it comes to user experience. So you think back in the day, there only were a few suppliers. People are familiar with, you know, how all the different messages are handled. Nowadays, you know, there's so much regulated stuff happening. You want the consistency across. And so, you know, things like a front-end layer to make that as consistent, at least across the aggregator level. I realize we don't always like working together across between aggregators, but at least at the aggregator level, we have a bit of consistency there. I think for me, aggregators are, you know, yes, a foundation in tech, but more and more we see other people offering really good platforms out there. For me, the aggregation package is just much more than the tech. It's important, it's a foundation, but it's everything around. And it's hard work. We have to step up as aggregators to keep the value for money, keep everything else.
Yeah, well said. Absolutely. I saw everybody's head nodding there, so that's great. It's something we can all agree on there. So coming over to your good self, Robert, now you've been doing this since 2001. Talk to us a bit about where you see it going next.
Yeah, so, I mean, the landscape has changed, I think, like in 2004, 5, 6, 7, when was it, when Nix was born? And you basically you integrated, as a casino, you integrated Nix and microgaming back then, and you were basically done. Now, like, there's lots of studios out there and aggregators out there, and if you basically sort of draw a technical line where it will be heading in the next 10 years, the trend is already there. It's just, you have to open your eyes and look into the future a little bit. Where it's obviously going is, well, the tech is going to be easy. Latest in 10 years, likely in 5, maybe in 3. So also to my point before, and what Shelley is saying, the aggregators take, like, if a customer loses €1, aggregation takes between 1.5 and 3 cents of the whole value chain. And if tech becomes free or too simple to pay for, basically, the value must come from somewhere else, basically.
Ooh, intriguing statement there. And I'm going to come over to your good self, Liam. Now, we've got like a minute and a half on the clock. Time to get your crystal ball out. Where do you see this all going next? Or what's your kind of closing remarks for our awesome delegates?
I think eventually we need to come to the point where either the quality needs to come up from every side, from the aggregator side, I think, as we said, the game developer side. I think operators need to come more into control as well of what they want to release into the market and be a bit more leading the way in regards to right now. I think it's a bit of a free-for-all. Operators will take all the content, and I think it comes from the fact that all the content is readily available. So that's something I think which we will start seeing happen again. And even lately, I've seen more operators take a bit more of a stand in regards to content they want to release and the amount of games they are looking to release. And rates, we're hearing it more and more. There's blanket rates coming in, people not willing to spend more than a certain amount, which makes it harder across the board. Because as we said, the value chain is being taken more and more and more. Operators are not willing to pay more than a certain amount for content anymore. So that, of course, makes it much harder for the whole value chain. Yeah.
Fantastic, and we've actually kind of moved there from gateway to gatekeeper. Thank you so much to our amazing panelists, Alexandre, Shelley, Liam, Tanya, and Robert. That was absolutely brilliant. Okay, do remember, photographs, post online, hashtag NEXT Valletta. So, my dear friends, we're going to have a little stage change over here. I'm going to go off and come back on to introduce our next wonderful speaker. But that was absolutely brilliant. Thank you so much, my dear friends. That was totally fascinating. Brilliant stuff, as always. Merci beaucoup. Great stuff. Okay, our next session is called Story Selling. I'm going to tell you about it in 2 minutes.